disturbing. Tonight, we are plunging into the dark heart of the Appalachian Mountains with some truly unsettling true horror stories that will keep you up all night, if you're brave enough. Smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next descent into fear. Now, get comfortable. Relax. My name is Callum. I am 27 years old. I work as a freelance cartographer based out of Roanoke, Virginia. I often come to the Appalachian Mountains for solitude, for clarity. The old land offers both in ways the city never can. This autumn, I had planned a longer stay. A full 3 weeks alone. No schedule, no deadlines. I wanted to walk sections of the older, lesser-used feeder trails, the kind that faded from maps decades ago. Trails that wound deeper into forgotten valleys. I carried a light pack, my old leather-bound field journal, a battered camera, a small stove, enough food for a time. The rest I would gather as those before had done. The weather had held steady in the first days, the mornings crisp, laced with frost that melted by midday. The air smelled of cold stone and wet leaves. The canopy had already thinned. Only the highest branches still clung to brittle gold. I followed one ridge for nearly 4 days. The land rolled beneath my boots in long, folded waves. I saw no one. The trail grew faint but remained steady. Time itself seemed to stretch. The rhythm of walking quieted my mind. It was the 5th morning when I first noticed something had shifted. A subtle thing. The light seemed paler, flatter somehow. The air no longer tasted the same. A faint metallic note lingered at the edge of breath. I convinced myself it was nothing, a change in weather, perhaps rain coming. But the feeling remained, thin and persistent, beneath thought. By mid-afternoon, the trail narrowed further. The old blazes had vanished. The ground grew softer, spongy beneath the weight of my steps. That was when I first heard it. A low sound. Distant at first, not a voice, not wind, a kind of tone, low and steady. It rose from the earth itself. I felt it more than heard it, faintly vibrating through the soles of my boots. The air grew colder as evening neared. The forest leaned closer. The trees here were older, taller, their trunks dark with age and damp. I made camp near a hollowed-out stump. The clearing was narrow, the sky above already dim. A pale mist gathered low against the earth. As darkness fell, the tone grew stronger, not loud, but constant, a presence beneath the silence. I sat by the small flame of my stove, listening. My pulse slowed to match it. That night, sleep came in shallow waves. I woke often, breath-catching, ears straining. The tone had deepened. Beneath it, another sound emerged. A faint tapping, slow, measured. Not near, but moving somewhere beyond the veil of trees. I did not move from the tent. I lay still beneath the weight of cold blankets, breath shallow, heart slow. The tapping circled once, then faded, but the tone remained. At dawn, the forest was wrapped in dense fog, the air colder than it should have been. My breath hung thick, curling low to the ground. I packed quickly, my hands numb against cold metal buckles. The trail had vanished. The earth beneath my feet unfamiliar. The shapes of trees shifted in the mist. Yet something drew me forward, deeper. The forest seemed altered beyond what any natural change could explain. The trees stood closer now, their trunks bowed and twisted. Their branches reached down as though to touch the earth. The ground beneath my boots no longer felt like soil. It held a strange elasticity, a subtle give with each step. The low tone persisted beneath every sound. It had sunk deeper into my bones, into thought itself. My footsteps seemed distant to my own ears, as though heard from elsewhere. Time felt uncertain. The pale mist blurred the edges of everything. I moved without clear direction, guided more by instinct than by map or compass. The landscape no longer matched anything drawn or written. The path had vanished. In its place, the forest opened into unnatural corridors, spaces between trees too evenly spaced, too deliberate in their symmetry. Shapes began to appear within the mist. At first, only flickers, bare suggestions of form. A darker shape moving where none should be. A tall silhouette glimpsed through the veil of fog. Each time I stopped, listening, watching, but they would fade before the eye could settle. Yet the presence grew stronger. The feeling of being observed pressed heavily upon my back. My breath shortened. My limbs carried a weight not born of fatigue alone. The tapping returned. This time it was nearer, more deliberate. A steady, patient rhythm upon wood or stone. Each strike echoed faintly through the cold air. It came from no single direction. It seemed to surround me, to move as I moved. The tone beneath my feet now pulsed in rhythm with the tapping, a deep vibration that unsettled the stomach, clouded the mind. I could not tell how far I had walked, whether minutes or hours passed. The sky above remained fixed in dull twilight. And then the trees parted. Without transition, I stood at the edge of a wide depression. The ground here was bare. No moss, no fallen leaves, only dark, exposed earth slick with damp. At the center stood a single structure, a towering stone, taller than any man, its surface etched with deep, twisting lines that seemed to shift when the eye lingered. The fog did not cross the edge of the depression. It rolled around it in a slow, spiraling current. The tone deepened to a thrumming bass that resonated within my chest. The tapping ceased. Silence followed, more suffocating than sound. I stepped forward, unable to resist. Each movement slow, as though passing through heavy water. The cold bit deep into exposed skin. My breath came shallow, visible in long, trembling streams. At the base of the stone, the earth dipped sharply. A shallow hollow carved into the ground. Within it, the mist seemed thicker, opaque, moving of its own accord. And from within that hollow, a shape began to rise. The shape rose slowly from within the hollow, as though drawn upwards by the pulse of the earth itself. It was tall, far taller than any person, its form elongated and shrouded in folds of shadow that seemed not to belong to fabric, nor to flesh. No face was visible, no features could be traced, only the impression of arms, impossibly long, hanging at its sides. The mist coiled tightly around its form, drawn inward with each pulse of the deep, resonant tone. I stood frozen at the edge of the depression, my breath shallow, my limbs unwilling to obey. The cold had deepened into something beyond mere temperature, a raw, hollow chill that seemed to reach through skin, through muscle, and settle into the bones themselves. The figure began to move. It did not walk. It drifted across the ground in a manner that defied understanding. Each motion slow, measured, silent. The air around it rippled in subtle waves. I could hear no sound from the forest beyond, not the wind, not the call of distant birds, not even the faint drip of water that should have echoed from the damp trunks of trees. There was only the hum, the deep constant vibration, and the figure's slow advance toward the stone. When it reached the base of the towering stone, it stopped. One long arm lifted, fingers extended. The stone answered in kind, its etched surface beginning to glow faintly with cold blue light. The patterns writhed, no longer still, symbols bending and twisting in slow, fluid movements. The hum deepened. The ground beneath my boots began to tremble. A pressure built within my skull, behind my eyes. My vision swam. I could feel the pulse in my teeth, in the marrow of my bones. The figure turned, not with a motion of body, but with an undeniable shift of presence. I felt its attention upon me, heavy, suffocating, as though something vast and ancient had finally noticed an intruder in its domain. I could not move. Breath caught. The forest seemed to fall away beyond the clearing's edge. Only the stone, the figure, and the rising hum remained. Then the mist within the hollow surged outward in a slow wave. It drifted toward me, cold and thick. Within it, faint shapes moved, other forms, smaller than the one before the stone, but countless in number. They drifted through the mist with gliding steps, their outlines shifting and uncertain. The figure raised its other arm, and the hum rose to a deafening pitch. I felt the ground lurch beneath me. My legs buckled. Darkness pressed at the edges of my vision. I forced my body to move, stumbled backward out of the depression. My boots slipped on the slick earth. The pulse seemed to anchor my limbs to the ground. I dragged each step, breath ragged in my chest. The moment I crossed the edge of the clearing, something shifted. The hum faltered. The mist recoiled. The pressure behind my eyes lessened. I collapsed to my knees in the cold earth. My breath came in short, painful gasps. Around me, the forest had changed. The mist was thinner here, but it still swirled low along the ground. The trees seemed older, their trunks split and hollowed, leaning at impossible angles. The air remained heavy with cold. The forest no longer felt like the same place I had entered days before, and somewhere, beneath the earth, the hum still lingered. I do not remember finding my way back to the trail, nor do I know how long I wandered beneath the dim sky. At some point, I stumbled upon an old path, a remnant of stone and packed earth that led me slowly toward familiar ground. Now I am back. I write this beneath pale light, the taste of iron still sharp upon my tongue. My body remains chilled, my sleep shallow, and when the nights grow quiet, when fog drifts low across the ridges, I hear it. The hum, beneath the floor, beneath thought. I know the path is still there, waiting beneath the trees, and something within that hollow is watching still. My name is Rowan. I am 25 years old. I work as a graduate researcher in folklore studies at the University of Kentucky. My current thesis focuses on oral histories from remote mountain communities. That is why I came here, to this stretch of the Appalachian Mountains. I had arranged to stay in an old hunting cabin deep within the forest. It belonged to an acquaintance of my professor, remote, no phone service, no electricity, only a wood stove, a small spring, and a roof. It was perfect for my work, and for solitude. I arrived in late November. The air was sharp with cold. The leaves had fallen weeks before. The forest floor lay thick with damp reds and browns. The scent of rain-soaked wood and earth hung heavy in the still air. The first days unfolded in a kind of quiet rhythm. I spent my mornings transcribing old recordings, filling my notebook with fragments of story and song. In the afternoons, I hiked. There were old footpaths spidering out from the cabin, faint, forgotten. I felt at peace beneath the towering hardwoods. Their bare branches rose like cathedral vaults above the mist. The land seemed to breathe with a slow, ancient patience. I walked for hours without seeing another soul. At night, I returned to the cabin. The stove crackled softly. The dark pressed against the windows. Outside, the forest sighed beneath the stars. I listened to old tapes as I drifted toward sleep. But on the fourth night, I woke early. A strange stillness hung in the air. The wind had stopped. No branches creaked, no owls called, only a heavy, waiting silence. And then a sound. A faint, rhythmic knocking, deliberate, slow. It echoed from somewhere beyond the walls of the cabin. Not random, not the sound of a branch in wind. I lay frozen beneath the blankets, listening. Each knock came steady, then stopped. When dawn came, the world remained hushed. The forest seemed subdued. The mist hung low and cold. I found no sign of animals, no birds in the branches, no tracks in the leaf fall. That afternoon, walking a trail I had not explored before, I noticed something odd. A narrow path veered from the main track. Bare earth. No leaves covered it. No undergrowth touched it. The path was old. I could feel it, worn by years of unseen feet. I stood there for some time, breath slowing, the cold seeping through my coat. Something in me urged caution, yet something deeper urged me to remember, to follow. I turned away, for that day, but the image of the path lingered, even as I returned to the cabin, even as I tried to write. That night the knocking returned, louder this time, closer. The knocking came in steady intervals, measured, deliberate. I could feel each strike as a faint vibration through the floorboards. The cabin seemed to shrink beneath its weight. The darkness beyond the window felt thicker, as though pressed against the glass. I did not rise. I did not move. I listened as the knocking circled the cabin. Slow, patient. Each pause between knocks stretched long and cold. When dawn finally crept gray through the mist, the forest seemed altered once more. The trail outside was marked by faint impressions. Long, narrow. They traced a path from the edge of the clearing toward the forest, toward the path I had seen the day before. The sky remained low. The mist never lifted. The cold pressed deeper into the bones. I tried to return to my work, but the cabin felt uneasy, the quiet too dense. Each sound I made seemed swallowed by the space. By midday, I found myself again at the mouth of that old path, the earth still bare, the air colder there. The forest beyond was darker, the trunks closer together. I stepped forward. The ground beneath my boots felt oddly smooth. My footsteps made no sound. The mist here was thicker, coiling low along the earth. The light dimmed quickly, though the sun was still high. As I moved deeper, the forest seemed to close in. The air grew heavy, damp against my skin. Each breath tasted faintly metallic, sharp at the edges. The path wound through ancient trees. Their trunks rose like columns, twisted and split with age. I could see faint carvings in some, worn symbols whose meanings were long lost. The temperature dropped further with each step. My breath drifted long and pale in the dim light. Then came the tone, low, subtle, a hum beneath the sound of my breath. I could feel it more than hear it, a vibration through the soles of my boots, through the air itself. It matched the rhythm of my pulse, then slowly began to lead it. I stopped. The tone deepened. The air seemed to press inward. Shapes moved within the mist. Tall, thin, their outlines blurred, never quite defined. They moved with gliding steps between the trunks. I could not tell how many. I could not tell how far they stood, only that they watched. The path beneath my feet seemed to shift. Each step forward now felt longer. The forest no longer familiar. Time no longer certain. Then the path opened. A clearing, perfectly circular, the ground bare as bone. No grass, no leaves, no life. At its center stood a ring of stones, tall, leaning slightly inward. The air within the circle shimmered faintly, as though heavy with unseen currents. The tone grew louder here, deeper, a resonance that pressed against the chest. Breath came shallow, limbs heavy, the edges of thought blurred. The shape stood beyond the circle now, ringing its edge, motionless, watching. I stepped forward. Crossing the threshold of the stones, the air thickened around me. Each breath felt drawn through water, slow and effortful. The hum rose to a low, resonant pulse that seemed to vibrate through my spine. The ground within the circle was colder than the air. I could feel it through the soles of my boots, a subtle trembling beneath the earth, as though something vast stirred far below. The stones themselves were unlike any I had seen. Not simply shaped by time or weather, but carved with deep, spiraling grooves. The symbols etched upon them pulsed faintly in time with the hum. Lines that seemed to shift and coil when the eye lingered too long. At the center of the ring, the earth dipped into a shallow hollow. The mist within this hollow was darker, denser, swirling slowly as though stirred by an unseen force. No wind touched it. No sound came from within. And then from that dark mist, a figure began to take form. It rose slowly, gracefully. Its shape was tall, impossibly thin. Its limbs too long, joints placed where none should be. No face marked its head. No features defined it. Only a smooth, dark surface that seemed to drink in the faint light. As it rose fully, the hum deepened. The stones around me vibrated visibly now, a subtle trembling through their ancient mass. The air itself seemed to bend. The forest beyond the clearing had faded from view, swallowed by dense, swirling mist. I could feel its attention, though it had no eyes. A weight upon my chest, upon my mind. My breath slowed further. My pulse now matched the deep rhythm of the tone. The figure raised one elongated arm. Slowly, deliberately, the mist within the hollow surged upward, coiling around the arm. Shapes flickered within it, smaller forms. Fragmented, moving with unnatural grace, their outlines never fully clear. I could no longer move. My body had grown heavy, rooted to the earth. Thought itself slowed beneath the deep, resonant pulse. I could feel it now, not only in the air or ground, but within my bones. within the blood moving through my veins. The figure stepped forward, its movement a smooth glide across the cold earth. The smaller shapes followed, rising along the curve of the stones, drifting just beyond sight. Their presence was palpable, a sharp chill that prickled against the skin. As the figure neared, a sound began beneath the hum. A new tone, high, thin, piercing. It wove through thought, unraveling words before they could form. My breath caught in my throat. Vision blurred at the edges. The stones pulsed brighter. The ground beneath my feet trembled in slow waves. And then movement. From beyond the clearing, the shapes I had seen earlier in the forest returned. More now, countless, ringing the space beyond the stones, motionless, watching,